Welcome, everybody, to the Professionally Evil Perspective. I'm Nathan Sweeney.
I'm Kevin Johnson.
Kevin, I just scheduled my first doctor appointment in like 10 years with an ethical doctor. I'm very excited.
I'm not even sure how to take this. I don't even know what this means. Ethical doctor?
Yeah. I mean, don't you use ethical lawyers and ethical doctors and ethical accountants? Isn't that what everybody does?
See, I've always laughed. I just had this debate with somebody because they're like, well, they were, so I went to my doctor. It's funny that you say this because it was, and you know how doctor's offices, you go in, you wait, and then they call you in and somebody, a nurse, a PA or whatever, weighs you, measures you, like that kind of stuff, right? And then they put you in the hidden waiting room. Like this is the second waiting room that you didn't know was there. And then you wait again. So all of a sudden this guy walks into the room and he goes, Kevin Johnson. And I'm like, like Pavlovian's patient. I get up and follow this dude. And this guy just starts rattling stuff off at me, right? Like, oh, you have a blah, 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 you have a lack of testosterone. You have you have sleep apnea, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, like, why do you, who are you? Right. Like, what? Right. And so it turns out he's the guy who runs the practice. He's also a jackhole. And I'm this close to putting a note in my file that I don't ever want that guy to talk to me ever again. Right. And it's funny because I had no problem with what he was diagnosing. I accept to call it a diagnosis that he was like, look at me, I'm Sherlock Holmes, and I see that you have mud on your cuff, and so you obviously have leukemia, and like that kind of thing. And so after he calmed down a little bit, and the other person in the room, the PA or the nurse or whatever, I never got a name, when she realized that I was getting frustrated with this guy because this guy was just rattling stuff off. And then when I would ask a question, he would like, well, don't you know who I am type of thing. And he literally said something like, well, and I said to him, well, no, you never introduced yourself. Who are you? And he goes, well, I'm the boss here. And I'm like, that's funny. So am I. And but we started talking. She asked me what I do for a living, and I said, "Oh, I'm a professional hacker." And he proceeded to try to correct me as to what my job title was and what he knew about my job, which I think is hilarious. I'm not sure if that qualifies as mansplaining because I'm a man. I don't think so. Right. But doctor-splaining maybe. Basically just jackhole. And he said, "Well, he's an ethical hacker," and I said, I don't like using that term because all hackers are ethical. Ethics are personal.
Based on your own ethics, what do you
Based on your own ethics, if you're okay with what you did, you are an ethical hacker, right? Like that's...
I never thought about it from that way. That's an interesting perspective.
Right, but is it wrong? I'm not saying how we use the term. I know how we use the term, right? Like, but, might as well write this book in 1937. But... So it's funny to me, and I know you and I talked about this is what we wanted to talk about today. How many different, I don't know if identities is the right word. I know it's the word we used when we discussed this in advance. How many different identities fall into the cybersecurity InfoSec, right? And I've really seen it recently, and I think you have as well, because you and I both have been traveling to speak at conferences and we have booths and sponsorships at conferences and stuff like that. And we've seen such a, I was up at, what is that? It's a city, it's big. The name is big and fast river, Rapids, Grand Rapids. And shut up. It's how I did it. Okay. I couldn't remember where I was.
Wait, are you sure it was Grand Rapids and not Big Rapids? Because those are similar cities, very close together.
Is there really such a place as Big Rapids?
Yeah. We have a client there.
Big Rapids? I don't think that's true.
And it's Big Rapid or Big Rapids or something. Yeah. It's north of Grand Rapids.
Okay, we're going to look that up later. But I was in Grand Rapids. And I was at GrrCon, right? Chris and Jamie put on an amazing show. It's a lot of fun. I was speaking. Jason was up there with me. And IANS had a couple people there, and we went to lunch with them. And one of the people from Ions, she was newer to the company, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about conferences and how and like what this was, and I was talking about how conferences fall into and they can cross right into multiple of these, but for security, there's really three different types of groups that attend in my mind, right? You have the professional business style. You probably are wearing a suit or somebody's wearing a suit. You have the educational or student driven, whether that's students like college or high school, or students like like a SANS event where people are paying to take a class and it's a conference. And then you have what I like to call the hackery conferences, right? Like I don't know a better word for it, but
Yeah.
The conferences where the CTFs are a big deal, the lockpicking, the more
B-sides type events. Yeah.
B-sides type events are more hackery quite often, right? Yeah. And that started thinking about, who are people and stuff like that, and the different, I like, you see people and they'll say things like, well, I'm in the InfoSec community and InfoSec Twitter is the best representation of InfoSec. And it's like, you guys don't even understand how widespread InfoSec is and how many different aspects are.
Yep. Yeah. I was given a talk. I've lost track of the days. I guess it was 2 days ago. I was in Dallas for an event for like credit union auditors. And I often use the word attacker rather than hacker. Yes. Sometimes I slip when I'm talking about malicious activity. Yep. Sometimes I slip and use hacker more generically, but I often use the term attacker. And someone asked, like, well, what's the difference? Like, don't you mean a hacker? And so I asked them, I'm like, well, what is your opinion of a hacker? Is a hacker good or bad? Yeah. And everybody in the room said bad, right? Like I was like, does anybody consider a hacker a good thing? And people are like, well, maybe. I mean, some hackers can become good guys, but there was just this perception that hacker is bad. And so then we started talking about, I think most people accredit the term hacker to the 1950s or 60s MIT Model Train Club. Do you remember that? Have you heard that?
Yep. I actually did a talk where I presented, and it was the first slide was about the MIT Model Train Club.
Yeah. And so it was a very positive thing until the 80s, 90s, when, what was it? Sneakers came out, and then hackers, and what was Sandra Bullock's The Net? Like all of those.
Net. Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that movie in forever.
Yeah. And what was the one with John Travolta, Halle Berry?
Swordfish. That wasn't the 90s. Yeah. That wasn't the 90s, was it?
Early 2000s, late 90s, all in that. But right, we had about a decade there where Hollywood just said hackers are bad. And then at the same time, we had, all of the news media and whatnot. Hackers, it's an interesting term to coin for that sort of thing. So the question always comes up is, there's the people that like, we're going to take the name back. We're going to convince everybody that.
What is the one? Hacking is not a crime.com or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And John gives out those stickers all the time. John Strand. I don't know what I think about that. Like, is it possible
to recover doomed to fail?
The effort to save the name is doomed to fail?
Yeah. And I understand the idea. I really do. I and don't get me wrong. I still remember the first time I was on CNN, right? And they talked to me beforehand. I was interviewed. This back when I was at InGuardians was the first time, and they talked to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a security consultant. I'm this, and they talked to me multiple times about what my title was before the interview, and then they did the interview, and when they aired they did like an hour and a half interview, and they aired 15 seconds. It was hilarious, right? But for the 15 seconds, it said Kevin Johnson, hacker, on the screen on CNN. And it was funny because I had actually never used the term. I had purposely not referred to myself that way. I had purposely, no, I'm a professional. I'm a security analyst. I'm a security, whatever you want to say. And the reason I didn't do it was the company I worked for at the time was trying to use that interview as a way to market and stuff like that, and did not want the word hacker associated with me. That failed. It's one of those things where the reason I think it's doomed to fail is because it doesn't matter. and I'm not sure that's the right way to phrase it. I don't mean it doesn't matter to us.
I would,
It
yeah, I'd say
doesn't
it
matter
doesn't
to
matter
the
to
world in general,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So when you talk to your great aunt Matilda or whatever, right, and they say the word hacker, they have a meaning for it. And if
yeah,
you try to, I and it's funny, I really was not planning on bringing this up other than my joke about the 1937 book. Um, I just started reading a book that Nathan recommended years ago to me. And for the people who know me, you'll know how much I need something like this. But it's How to Win Friends and Influence People, or is that the title? That's the
yeah,
title, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
by Dale Carnegie. And I'm not reading it, I'm listening to it. It's an audiobook. And I always feel guilty saying I'm reading something that all I do is play an audio. I don't know why. Um,
I was thinking I have it. My copy was somewhere. I don't know. I've got Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. That's another one you should read if you
that's the
haven't.
next one I'm going to read. I think. I think I've already read that one. But neither here nor there.
It's not.
And what I'm in the section of the book right now where they talk about arguing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be blunt. I'm insulted by this section of the book because I relate so much to it, and that no, you're wrong. That's not the right thing. That's not right. And the minute you start to say to somebody, and they're right, the book was right, that the minute you go to somebody and say, no, don't you understand? Hacker is a good thing, and hacker is this, and hacker is that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's not correct. But the minute you do that, the person at the other end, first off, they have no care about the word.
Yeah.
They used a term that they were taught. And so all you did at that point is irritate them and put them on the defensive. No, I'm not wrong. Hacker is this. This is what it means. I'm not saying it happens all the time. I'm saying that is the general reaction when you tell somebody they're wrong.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And
Yeah.
so if your presentation is, and looking at hacking is not a crime, their presentation absolutely is, you're wrong, we're right. This is what the word means. That's not the way to do it. And as long as that's the way we're going to present it, we're not going to win that battle.
Yeah, and that's why I think any kind of adversarial thing like that is always, I mean, this is social engineering 101, right? Like anytime you're being like harsh and doing things to turn people off, you're not going to get what you want. I tend to use more of the Socratic method of asking people, like, what does it mean to be ethical? When was the last time you went to talk about an ethical hacker and what does that mean? And I try to ask them questions to make them think, oh, huh. And then at that point, they're open to, well, your side. Explain that to me.
Yeah, I like the quote I got, and I'm gonna totally not quote this well, so let's just go with it, right? But Benjamin Franklin was talking about it because I guess Ben Franklin, when he was a kid, the story is that he was told that he loved to debate and it was wrong because he argued with people constantly and he didn't win. He might have won the argument, but he lost that relationship or lost that overall thing. And the way Benjamin Franklin says he approached things, and I don't know if this is true. I'm literally quoting from a book who quoted him supposedly, and I didn't vet this. Okay, but that he would always try to say things like, "Well, that sounds interesting. As the way I see it right now, though, I have this," or that's interesting, but what's backing that up? Like you push it back. You don't say it's wrong. You say, could you explain why that's right? Because this is what I see right now. I don't know that I'm wrong. I don't know that I'm right. And it was interesting. And I think that when we look at it, there is an aspect, and, the hypocrisy is big at the guy who has a slogan of professionally evil. But there is an aspect that our industry gets where we say, haha, we're hackers. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
We're right. We've talked about what is it, Yahoo that became Verizon or whatever, where it was like, we're the professional. No, we're the paranoids. That was it. We're the paranoids.
Yeah.
And, I always laugh about that because it's like,
do you know what paranoid means?
Yeah. That's a mental illness, right? Like, hi, I'm crazy. Let me protect your stuff. That just doesn't we don't go around going, hey, we're security schizophrenics. And
so to be fair, that also is what it clinically means is not necessarily how people take it, right?
Absolutely, right. There's
ways the definition and there's connotation, yeah. And so I think it's it's easy to say, oh, wow, I would never use that term, but I understand
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you mean
yeah.
it, right?
Well,
How
and
it's
that's and that's what I'm saying, right? Like, is we have this. There is an aspect of our industry that we like the outsiderness. We
yeah,
like the, you know, I enjoy wearing an I Hack Charity shirt to restaurants and having the waiter say, "What's that?" You know what I mean? Like, I get a kick
right,
out of
right.
that. My daughters get a kick out of that. Sarah, my youngest, will regularly say, "Dad, wear that shirt. Like, wear that one. It'll be funny." And you know,
Yep. So I know there's another what people how people identify what they call themselves, and I think it's part of the persona of who we like to put off, right?
yeah,
Regardless of, like you talked earlier about how we have our own ethics. We all believe something, and we believe certain things are right or wrong, but the way we portray that to other people is an important part of our identity.
yeah.
And I know I've heard you rant about all the time, or often, security researchers, right? And I
Hey,
mean
look,
that's
I don't rant. I make a very simple sentence. The vast majority of the time that somebody claims to be a security researcher, they mean criminal. And
I don't know if I would say the vast majority, but it's common, right? A,
yeah.
a large number of times, yeah.
Oh,
And
I got caught. I was researching.
yeah,
And let me be very clear before I get a message from a certain number of people that I'm friends with that regularly tag me when I make that comment, like, Kevin, I'm so hurt. There
yeah,
are lots of really good security researchers that I am
absolutely,
not calling a criminal.
yeah,
I'm talking about those people who are like, oh, damn, I got caught. I'm a
yeah,
security
yeah.
researcher.
Or I don't know how many times I've heard my friend Bob did this thing. I
Yeah,
was like,
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
yeah, it's like, hey, I'm gonna tell you on the slide that I'm doing something unethical and illegal, but I didn't say my name, so it's okay. Like, just call yourself a criminal. That's what it is, right? Like,
And
it's simple.
it's like, I'm going to say it that way so that I judge whether you react. And if you react badly, I'm then going to go down the path of saying, oh, no, it wasn't me. It was my friend. Really, my friend. And if
Exactly
you're like,
right.
oh, that's awesome, then I'll be like, yeah, 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 I was cool, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Right? It's stupid.
So, do you think a large I've had conversations recently about this issue within the infosec community and how it's grown and expanded. um, there's a lot of people that have the mentality that we all did those things growing, as we were getting into the community. We scanned stuff we shouldn't have, we tested things we shouldn't have, we just didn't get caught.
I
And so
never
the
did
people
that.
I,
That
let,
was a
me,
joke. That totally was
okay,
sarcasm.
let me finish my thought and then we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So there's this idea that anytime we try to say you shouldn't do that is really just survivor bias, because we didn't get caught. We can now say that's wrong. And so it's almost like snobbery, right? Like virtue signaling of I'm not as bad as you because I didn't get caught. Do you think there's anything to that?
I don't think it's survivor's bias. Yeah, survivor bias.
Survivor bias. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not snobbery. For me, and I believe that in most cases I've actually said this, but I'm going to give myself better credit than I probably deserve, right? I'm saying you shouldn't do it because I look back on the things I did do and realize now in hindsight they were wrong. I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And more so, it's so much easier to cross a line that is wrong and you get caught.
That's true.
Right? So I'm not saying to people, at least I hope nobody's ever taken this from me, like, oh man, I've never done anything wrong. Look, I regularly say I drive 90 miles an hour down 295 because I like to believe the 95 in the number is what the speed limit is. It's not. And like, I won't lie and say I don't break the law. I speed very often.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is we have a history in InfoSec that the way to get into InfoSec is to break the law, get caught, and become a cool hacksaw person, right?
Hey.
And let's be blunt. How many times have you seen a keynote by Kevin Mitnick or, right, like these people who have explicitly gone against the law, right?
I've got.
Oh, I'm so worried. The number of weird things he's got on the table behind him just randomly weirds me out.
Can you sign this for me?
Next time I'm here, I will. I just signed one of his books at GurCon. And, I was going to sign a second one. Another guy was going to bring me. He has one signed by Kevin Mitnick, and he wanted my signature as well.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, for the people who don't know, I regularly get asked to sign Kevin Mitnick's books because a number of people think I look like Kevin Mitnick, and so they're asking based on they think I'm Kevin Mitnick,
Yeah, you
and
have the same name. I mean, it's basically the same
it's
guy.
Kevin, right? And so yes, I do sign them. If you bring a Kevin Mitnick book, I will autograph it, but I will autograph it with my name. And, so I'm waiting to see the first Kevin signed book on eBay and have it be
You
my
should
signature.
you
But
should you should sign them as Kevin Johnson, ethical hacker,
I'll start doing that.
or put quotes around ethical.
Yeah. So, I mean, we as an industry, we're hypocritical. We promote people with a message of, I broke the law, I'm good now. Or, like Kevin Mitnick regularly presents, I broke the law and I shouldn't be a law because I was fine doing it. Right.
Yeah,
But we promote that and then we say, but do the right thing. Right?
yeah,
I don't understand why we're not promoting more. We are, right? Like Alyssa Miller has amazingly good keynotes about how to do the right thing, how to be involved in the industry. Katie Maceras has amazing presentations and keynotes about how you can ethically and legally learn and join the community and deal with bug bounties and stuff like that. And that's what the other part of it, right? There's so many paths to get into this industry that
right.
allow you to try stuff without actually violating the laws or the rules or the things like that.
Yeah,
That to me, if the way you think the way into the industry is to go break the law, really what you're saying is you're lazy. You're not willing to put the effort
that's
in
fair.
to find the other paths.
That's
Right?
interesting. Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
Lazy is probably an exaggeration, right? But
yeah, yeah. I mean, and every situation is unique.
yep,
Everybody's got different.
absolutely.
I know when we were growing up, I didn't have anybody that could teach me stuff. Like I didn't do very many bad things.
Yeah.
Um, and none of them were horrible, but
That
I didn't
you'll
know
tell
better.
us about.
You
I know
know,
what you
so
did last summer.
I'll tell you about my introduction to phreaking, and I don't think this actually broke any laws.
For the people who don't know, that's spelled PHREAK, and it
Yes,
is phone freaking. It's
phone hacking. Yeah, it's not sexually as much as it may sound that way. So
who took
there
that
was
as sexual other than you, weirdo.
phreaking sounds like yeah. So
Happy's like I did. I like, damn it, you're both weirdos.
yeah. So or maybe you're just not.
That might be.
So there was one payphone in my hometown. And so I rode my bike up to this payphone. This was probably junior high age. And I called my home answering machine. And, back then the answering machines had an actual physical tape in it. And when the answer machine picked up, I let it go through the thing and then it beeped and let me leave my message. And I dropped in like, $6 worth of quarters into the payphone machine. And then I hung up and got my change back. And I went back home, got the answer machine tape, and I put it into a little tape cassette. And when you play it, you hear the tones that the quarters made because that's how payphones work. Each coin made a different tone. So then I went back to the payphone and I called. I don't remember if I called my home number. I think I called something else because I was being safe, but just some random number. No. What I did is I called the operator and I said, "Hey, I need to call this number, but the phone keypad's all mashed up. It won't let me dial this number. Can you dial it for me?" And she's like, "Oh yeah. Just put in, so much money." And so I held that little tape recorder up and I played the tones, and she said, "Thank you, connecting," and it worked. And I was so scared and excited at the same time. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just called this number for free. I have this like amazing thing." And I started looking around. I'm like, the FBI is going to descend on me any moment. I rode my bike home so fast. I hid that tape and I never used it again because I was scared to death that they were going to track me down and arrest me.
Yeah.
So that's the worst that I got into, and I don't know. I guess I don't know. We can get into that more later, but somehow I escaped the. Maybe I just didn't have access to the other things that could be done.
Dude, the FBI's been watching you so long.
That's probably I'm probably not.
They're waiting. They're waiting for your next misstep. Luckily, Santa's watching you too.
Yes. Well, hey, let's wrap it up. I think we should come back and discuss the ethics thing in more detail. And the reason I say that is I think there's some really interesting discussions about what it means to be ethical and how can we enforce ethics in our industry and what does that look like when we're on an international stage now where we have people from different cultures, different perspectives.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe we come back and do that next episode.
I like it. I like it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, man.
Bye.